Thank you very much, ONNED, for inviting me. My name is Dargan. I'm the CEO and founder of Equine MediRecord. As you can hear from my accent, I'm from Ireland. When the Prime Minister talked around not leaving agriculture behind and rural communities behind when it comes to digitization, I'm one of those young entrepreneurs when it comes to digitization. And it's my industry, the horse industry, the equine industry, that I'm going to talk to everyone about today. And then I just wanted to, because this is a youth event, talk about the 3 challenges I see young entrepreneurs having when they start a business and how we overcame those challenges. So what does our business do? So we digitize and automate regulatory compliance for the global equine industry. So horse racing, show jumping, all the equestrian sports. So a little bit about my background. If it goes to the next slide. Where am I pointing? Oh, we've gone too far now. There's a slide in between. Well, you're not going to find out about my background, but I've come from 5 generations of horses. My grandfather was a senior steward of the Irish Turf Club, which ran horse racing, and my father's been a horse owner and breeder for over 5 decades. So when I was working on my farm, this was the office. So this was the biggest problem we had, was that there are so many documents that you have to keep when it comes to owning a horse, but for the welfare of the horse and to ensure its compliance to be a horse owner. But there are many problems with this system. The records become lost, obviously, damaged and illegible. You can be elsewhere when medications are being administered to your horse, and when you can return, people can forget to fill out the medications, which for the regulators as well, if you have to go around and check all these records, this takes a long time and a lot of money. Hopefully. One clicker. So our solution was very simple. A mobile and web application that can be filled out in seconds while the medications are being administered. A trainer vet assistant simply logs onto their profile, selects the horse in question, fill out the relevant fields for that regulation, for that jurisdiction, and clicks Add Record. So this was the regulation, because there were so many regulations. You saw the pile of paper that we had to fill. There's so many regulations. Where did we start as a company? So this is the regulation in the UK, that every treatment, every medication given to a horse has to be recorded by law. And if you don't, you can be fined. And in the worst case, you can lose your license, and that's your livelihood, or even face jail time. So this was the regulation we went to. Very simple. It took us 2 years to get our system approved by the Irish government, because you had to get approved by the Irish Department of Agriculture, Veterinary Ireland, Veterinary Council of Ireland, Irish Thoroughbred Breeders Association, the Irish Trainers Association. So it took a very long time. So we launched in the middle of 2018, and then we got approved in the UK, France, United States, and Saudi Arabia. And then we thought, what do we do next? Vaccinations. So we're all very familiar now around time schedules because of COVID, primary and then your booster. We knew about all of this in the horse industry for a very long time, because there are very strict vaccination schedules that horses have to do. And if you don't fill those out, your horse, number 1, can't travel, or number 2, can't compete at the event it goes to. So if you make these schedules and you don't do them correctly, you can get in a lot of trouble. So we have the first automated regulatory compliance system when it comes to vaccinations. It will automatically remind you and your vet of when you need to vaccinate your horse. So where are we today? We have tens of thousands of horses on the system across Ireland, the UK, France, United States, and Saudi Arabia. Since 2018, we've had over 1,000 inspections, 100% compliance, which is the greatest thing for me, because it means that our system is really ensuring that we are providing the best animal welfare to those horses under our care. And we've been endorsed by some of the top organizations in the world. So this is a photo of me with my 3 brothers. No, a number of them, only the one on the left hasn't worked in the business. And this is the Breeders' Cup World Championship. So this is the World Cup of horse racing. And this is what they said about our system, that it was a major breakthrough, and it provided the latest and most comprehensive medical and testing records for all the participants in this year. So this is the World Cup of horse racing. And they said that that was what our system did. Now, you may not know this man in the middle. Probably a presidential candidate, maybe, in the next elections in the United States. So this is at the Preakness. So this is in Maryland. This is one of the classic races, one of the top 3 horse races in the United States, millions in prize money. And this is what every single horse that competed in that race last year had to be cleared using one of our systems. And probably our biggest one to date and the nicest kind of contract that we've done. If it goes. So this was us leading an Irish trade delegation to Saudi Arabia with the current Irish Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, who people may recognize, maybe, I don't know, he's EPP as well. And we had every single horse that ran in the Saudi Cup. So there was 20 million of prize money, $20 million of prize money. And every single horse that traveled to Saudi Arabia had to be cleared using one of our systems. And then before it raced, it had to input all its information before it raced to ensure it was compliant. And this is what our Prime Minister in Ireland said about our system after seeing and leading that delegation and announcing our contract with Prince Bandar from the royal family in Saudi Arabia. There's somewhere I'm supposed to be pointing. We've done work in Greece. So as part of that contract with Saudi Arabia, I don't know if you know, there is a horse racing track just outside here in Athens. And one of the horses ran in Saudi Arabia from Greece, ran in a very big race with a lot of prize money. Did very well, actually, out of around 20 horses came 5th, called Run to the Hills. And we have 5 horses from Greece this year going to Saudi Arabia, hopefully. And Greece has the top ever racehorse it's ever had in Greece going this year. So if you want to have a bit of excitement and you want to see a Greek representative in an international event, watch the Saudi Cup this year. There will be a very good Greek horse. I won't say whether to bet on it or not. So with all this traction we got internationally, we decided to sell a stake in our business to a private equity fund based in the United States called Merits Holdings, and we have now joined the Business Infusions Group, which is the largest equine veterinary software group in the world. So this is us announcing our investment in Ireland on Morning Ireland, which is Ireland's largest radio show, and it's kind of been the culmination of the business to date. So these are kind of the 3 challenges that I see are facing entrepreneurs today, young entrepreneurs. And it's what we face. The big one, number 1, is if you're a young person and you haven't been in business before, you're just coming out of school, you're just coming out of college, you probably don't have any money to start a business. Or you're very lucky and maybe you have very good friends and family who will give you some money. I didn't have any money starting the business, so I needed to look for money. Number 2 was you haven't had decades to get expertise in a certain field because you're young. So you haven't had that opportunity to do that. And number 3, you have no track record yet. And that's the biggest thing investors will ask and look for when they look to invest. Every single time we went to a venture capital firm, whether it was in Europe or the United States, they wanted to see the track record of the team. If you're a young entrepreneur, how do you have a track record if you've just come out of school or college? You can't. So just to go in a little bit more, I thought this was a really interesting article here. This was done by Forbes, and it looked at the startups and did a cross-sectional analysis of the startups in America. And it looked at the age, because everyone was thinking, oh, Mark Zuckerberg and all the young entrepreneurs, it must be tech, it's all for young people. And so they did this and that, and they found the mean age of startup founders in the United States, high-tech startup founders, and then what they call ultra-fast growth or unicorns. The average age of all those successful was over in their 40s, which I found really interesting. And I would say it isn't because young people aren't good at starting businesses. It's because we are not in a position to overcome some of these challenges unless we are given a bit more help. And it's why when I meet politicians, I say, this is why young people need more support when they start a business. So how did we get over the initial funding part? Grant funding. Pure and simple. It was grant funding the whole way. We went to a bunch of different programs. So the first one was university and colleges. So this is us back in 2017. I'm down there in the bottom right. We received our first 50,000 euros from this program in Ireland. Many of these programs in Ireland, I know for a fact, in Trinity and UCD, are open to every single startup in Europe. So you do not need to be from Ireland. So if you have a great idea, you're looking for startup capital, Go look at some of the university programs outside of Greece, because I know they are begging for international entries in Ireland. And if they have a certain allocation for companies outside of Ireland that are in the EU. So that was our first one. The second one is, I'm very proud to say in Ireland we have a great program of local enterprise boards. So in each county, which is kind of our provinces or states, we have a board where there is specific funding given to startups. If you can show a business plan, you can show promise, they will fund your initial capital to get your business off the ground. And it's been a huge success in Ireland. And then with Enterprise Ireland, they are the body that go and represent you internationally. So when you try to trade internationally, they will open the doors and say, we are a representative of the Irish government. This is a company we have. They would like to speak to you. And it means, you know, instead of a startup coming up and saying, hey, I'd like a meeting, if it's the Irish government, you're a lot more likely to get in. European Union funding, Horizon 2020 is a great program. I believe there's a new one now. I don't know the name of it in Europe, but it's another program that they give specific startup funding to certain areas of specific concern to the EU. So I would also look at that. Next problem, if you've come straight out of college, you know, or school, you don't have any expertise yet. You're young. How are you going to be an expert, you know, 30 years of experience if you've just come out of college? You can't. And this was kind of depressing little fact in the Forbes article. They found that of the very top startups, so the very top 0.101% of entrepreneurs, all of them had jobs in the industry before they started their business. So how do we overcome that as young people? If you can't be the expert, get the expert on your team. An advisory board was key for us. So I couldn't be an expert in veterinary. I'm not a vet. You know, I couldn't be an expert in training horses because I hadn't trained horses. I obviously had been around horses my whole life, but as a child, always with supervision of parents. So what we did was we found that if you cannot be the expert, get the experts involved. Form an advisory board, and whenever we had an issue, whether it was around veterinary or regulatory or horsemanship, we had someone we could go to. So the final thing was no track record. How am I supposed to prove to you? I ask you for 100,000 euros. You're obviously going to go, well, why can I trust you? How can I trust you with my money? What have you done before? And it's a really, really tough one to get over as a young entrepreneur because they want to see that. That's the biggest thing investors always say is, show me your team's track record. But if you're a young entrepreneur, you don't have any yet. So how do you get that credibility? How do you get the credibility to say, yes, give me the money? Trust me, I will get you a return on your investment. And for us anyway, what we found, hopefully, competitions. It's free marketing, number one. But what we found with competitions is, in Ireland specifically, there was so many different, and in other countries, and they're European competitions too, if you can go in, compete against other startups and say, I am the best, and I've gone through this rigorous process, I've had a bunch of successful entrepreneurs who have been on the panel to judge, and they have said, we are the best business in the Irish Midlands. And that's what we got. And we are the best, most outstanding small business in Ireland in 2022. And we got that right before we got our 8 figures of funding. And our team was named in 30 under 30. So look, hopefully, I know everyone's tired, it's been a long day, but I'm hoping if you're thinking of starting a business, I've provided a little bit around how I think we got around those main 3 problems that young people face. And to the decision makers, politicians, everyone who has a bit of power, this is why young people need a bit more support when it comes to starting a business. Thank you.